Jennah Fakhouri, award-winning poet and writer and founder of Zajal, which is a literary avenue, a literary platform in the UAE. And as of yesterday, one of the winners of the first chapter ELF Seddiqi Writers Fellowship. Thank you very much for joining us on Entrepreneur Middle East today.
Thanks for having me.
Of course. Jennah, first question to you. We're at a time when creative folks can sort of use social media to showcase their work. And despite this sort of algorithm race that exists, it appears that it's only the content which is very human that stays with the end user, with the consumers. But concurrently, in a bid to sort of beat this algorithm race, there are a lot of people a lot of creative folks, who feel like perhaps vulnerability is something that cannot be, for the lack of a better word, commodified. What is your sort of take on this as someone who has been very, proudly Palestinian you've showcased your Palestinian heritage, you bring together people in the work that you do. What has your take been on in terms of how vulnerability translates in social media?
I think that's a really good question. And I think you have to be who you are if you want to attract the right type of people. So I can obviously create content for an algorithm, and perhaps that may outperform. But the stuff that really connects people and draws them into your community and into the brand that you're trying to sustain is going to be the work that authentically feels like you and also feels unique to your voice. So I think especially as a creative, I need to remember there's only one Jennah. And I bring that into the poetry that I perform. And I also am very cognizant of the fact that I have a platform and I have this voice that God gave me. And it's my job then to amplify voices that are not being heard. Especially as a Palestinian, I tend to draw upon the stories and the narratives that I'm seeing coming out of Gaza and coming out of the West Bank, and of course coming out of Jerusalem as well. And I translate that into powerful poetry that can really connect with people beyond the sound bites and beyond the news headlines.
Yeah, 100%. Now, the path of creative entrepreneurship in many ways is perhaps not as linear as a traditional entrepreneur. Say an entrepreneur who's working in healthcare or fintech still has a level of forecasting that they can do in terms of, trends and consumer behaviors and all of that. When you are working as a poet in a space where pop culture themes and identity labels sort of emerge on the daily, how do you then sort of stay true to your own values and your own creative vision while also allowing room or space for the foreign reader to sort of interpret the work that you do?
I think one thing that we're realizing is that yes, there's AI and yes, there's all these trends coming up every single day, but there's also a very real need to connect on a human level. And you can use screens to actually facilitate important, meaningful conversations. So me, for example, as a Palestinian, I saw that people kept hearing about us, but they were never hearing from us. And I said, you know what, I want to do something about that. And I started Zajal, which is a literary platform. And within that literary platform, I started by putting people on blind dates with Palestinian books that enabled them to get access to all of these different stories they wouldn't otherwise be exposed to. And then that expanded as a concept. And I realized, you know what, there is a genuine gap for intellectual conversations and for third spaces beyond the screen. So then I utilize all those trends and I utilize having a platform online to create a safe space offline where we could actually explore different cultures every single month through our book club. And I have a beautiful community of people that are genuinely culturally curious. And that was only possible because I was authentic to myself. And I also saw a very real need for people to connect and to also vent out their frustrations when it comes to the way that certain cultures, especially their own cultures, are being interpreted online and in the news.
Right. This is a bit of a two-parter question that I want to ask you, and it has a lot to do with the concept of visibility on social media. Creativity inherently requires a level of vulnerability that in your craft when you're in the midst of that creative process. But there might be a few, who, when you sort of have to reach beyond the small spaces, like what you do with Zajal brings together a group of people, and there is this very sort of tangible, palpable energy that is between them. But for you to be able to showcase that on a larger scale, social media is a great tool. But that also means that you are taking snippets of your work, which is perhaps more intricately sort of crafted, and selling that on social media, right? When you showcase your creativity in parts, how do you maintain nuance in such a scenario?
I think selective vulnerability is really important. So one thing that I always say is people say you're so raw, and you're so real. And when we see you performing, or even like, again, the snippets I do choose to share online, it feels like we are inside your heart.
Yeah.
But I've already processed all the feelings I'm sharing. And I think that's really important as a creative is if you're so in it that someone's interpretation or someone's opinion of you in that moment is really important and is going to affect you and your mental health, you're not ready to share that piece. You got to protect your own piece in order to bring your best self and to also curate the type of content that your audience is really trying to see. And I think through the poetry that I do, and also through the types of events I choose to go through, I'm always really, really aware of the fact that I have this platform and I have this opportunity to say something, but I need to make sure that I can also manage any of the kickback or the whiplash that I might get from being really myself and being really quite blunt online.
Absolutely. This is a bit of a tangential question, but what sort of financial hindrances, I'll say, have you faced in your sort of creative entrepreneurial journey, if at all, and how have you navigated that?
When something's a passion project and you see other people getting really excited about it, and you also start to notice that some things are pricing people out, it's hard to stay in the business hat and be like, I'm not going to give it to you for free. Like you actually have to pay for my service because it's all my time and my effort. I think, again, it's separating the fact that Jennah's excited to create something versus the fact that this is Jennah's business. And for me, it's having these different personas for myself. So there's the business founder, and there's also Jennah the poet, Jennah the creative. And I get to bring Jennah the creative because she's funded by Jennah the founder. And I think managing to separate that out for myself is how I'm able to actually run a business that also feels really valuable to the community. And I think another thing too is like market research is super important. You need to understand what already exists, what people are willing to pay for, and what makes you unique, and how are you communicating that? Because, for example, I said I run a book club. If people hear that, they might just be like, oh, this is a basic book club. That's where your unique selling point is really, really important. And I'm always really, really clear. It's about diverse voices. It's about creating cultural guides to immerse you in those spaces. It's about when you come into that space, you leave feeling like you explored a part of the world you wouldn't have without me.
100%.
And that's, I think, also what helps drive my business and bring new people in every single time we run sessions and events.
Beautiful answer, by the way. I loved how you sort of spoke about maintaining that balance and sort of differentiating those two aspects of you, Jennah the founder and Jennah the creative person. That was lovely. Final question, and it is a bit of an elephant in the creative room, which is AI. It's a question I've been asking all day to everyone I've been speaking to, and AI has sort of enabled a lot of people to believe that they are creative folks. And let's not get into that. Let's talk about how it has become a bit of an echo chamber. Like creative people in general, the worst thing you can do for yourself is have an echo chamber, is have yes men around you. You need a certain level of healthy criticism. But now when you put in a prompt on AI, it tells you great job, right? What is your sort of take on this? How do you see it sort of shifting the creative landscape, if at all? And just your observations on this development.
I think what you said is so important. You need to have healthy friction. Otherwise, you're not going to grow as a person. And that's the same reason why, even though I could make videos purely for online and probably reach a lot more people, I'm always really, really sure of the fact that I want to keep continuing to perform on live stages. Because you get that real feedback. You get to see what people react to, what works, what doesn't work. On the matter of AI, we are seeing creatives that look like people and that sound like us and that are stealing our sounds and that are now getting over like 3 million streams a month. That's insane. That is surpassing, I think, where a lot of people thought AI was. But I still don't think we necessarily need to be terrified of that because there's still this desire for realness and authenticity and people-led spaces. And I think you're going to see a lot more in-person events arising from this curated reality you're seeing online, where the internet will become more of a platform that enables people to actually meet. And you're seeing that. You're seeing run clubs. Have you seen how many have appeared around Dubai? You're seeing all of these supper clubs. You're seeing all of these different mixers that are happening as well. So there's a very real desire for people to see you behind the mask because people are afraid they're not talking to a person.
Yeah.
And I think as a creative myself, I think it just makes me sort of step up my game and also embrace my flaws as a person.
Yeah.
If I make a spelling mistake, that means I'm a person and that means I'm human. And that used to be something that they really didn't like.
Yeah.
And yet now that is actually what differentiates me from a machine.
Yeah.
And I think the other thing too you have to remember is you have your own lived experiences. And no machine is going to go out and live them.
Yeah.
So yes, they may take some of the best literary works in the world, but they don't have that heart or the way that you deliver something that makes people connect to the work. So I just say, keep being yourself. And yes, it's scary. I'm not going to act like it's not. I'm a digital strategist at the end of the day. I've worked at that intersection of culture, creativity, and tech.
Yeah.
But still, I feel really, really hopeful for the fact that there are so many people that are already anti-AI and there's demands for more legislation in the spaces where AI should not be versus where it should and where it can actually help us and be a lending hand to create creative work more efficiently and faster.
Yeah, 100%. AI inherently isn't evil, but we need to be sort of legislating where it can and cannot be used. Jennah, this was lovely. I wish this could carry on for another hour. Thank you very much for joining us on Entrepreneur Middle East today.
Thank you.